Hey everyone, Keith McGinnis here at KCDC Designs out of Eagle, Nebraska. Do you want to see how I created this beautiful piece of wall art that I call a Rock Island Slab? And I made this out of 1 inch pink insulation foam. I started off with a 2 foot by 4 foot piece of pink insulation foam, 1 inch, and I just kind of drew out the shape, I guess, that I wanted this slab to be. And then I took my angle grinder and using my angle grinder, what I wanted to do was just kind of form a fairly aggressive rock edge. Knowing this was going to be wall art, it was not going to be a flat surface. I knew I could get pretty aggressive with the rock edge. It doesn't take much to sand down the pink foam. And again, all I'm trying to do here is just give myself a little bit of a contour. Once I get all the way around that, then I'm going to mix up some Bondo, and I'm going to get some Bondo, and I'm going to coat my edges completely. I want to get into all the little nooks and crannies, and I'm not putting the Bondo on very heavy. I'm only getting the Bondo on there just enough to make sure that all of the edges are coated. Then what I decided to do from there, after I got the Bondo put down on the edges, and I had some Bondo left over, I thought, well, I'm going to put some Bondo on the top surface as well. I'm going to give myself some peaks and valleys, kind of some mountain peaks. I thought, you know what? It'll have a little bit of a texture to it. It'll give it a little bit more of a 3D effect. I'll kind of have some mountainous areas. I mean, that was my goal. And I thought, this is an experiment, so let's give it a try. So once I got that on, here's a close up and a kind of an overview. So this will give you a little bit better of an idea of what I did with getting the Bondo on the top. And you can see I have it around my edges. And you can see the peaks and valleys. And that's really important. So remember those peaks and valleys that I have on that top surface. Because later on in the video, you're going to see what happened when I put the color coat on and when I put the clear coat on. And how that ended up and what kind of a look I got because of having those peaks and valleys. Again, it was an experiment, and with the colors I was using, I thought, you know what, this could turn out pretty cool. But you can tell I didn't get too strategic with how I put that on there. All I wanted to do was just have some areas that were going to be coated. And from there, once the Bondo dried, then I took my orbital sander with 220 and very lightly, I'm just taking off the sharp points. And I'm taking the sharp points off the top and I'm taking the sharp points off of the edges. Then I'm ready for Stone Coat's black undercoat paint. And so that's what I'm putting on now. And I'll put 2 coats of Stone Coat's black undercoat paint on there. Let that first coat dry. Then I'll put my second coat on again. In all those crooks and crannies, I want to make sure I get everything covered as well as I can. You can still tell that I've got those contours of peaks and valleys up on top. So now that I have my 2 coats of Stone Coat's black undercoat paint, and I let that completely dry for a minimum of 4 hours, this was actually overnight. Now I'm ready to fog my edges, and so I'm using colors similar to the epoxy colors that I'm going to be putting down for my design. I've got some copper, pearl mist, there's champagne bronze, and I think I have oil rubbed bronze that I'm using as well. Again, I'm not being too strategic, but when I do put down the color coat, if that color coat does not completely cover my rock edge, I'm okay with that because of the fact that I've fogged the edges. So anything that shows through, I'm still going to have color on those edges. And also because I put Bondo and I've got my 2 coats of Stone Coat's black undercoat paint, I don't have to worry about the spray paint basically melting that 1 inch foam. So spray paint directly on 1 inch foam, that's pretty much going to melt the foam. So I've got my protective layers on there and I've got my edges the way I like them. I also fog the top. I feel that it also adds depth as well. And now I'm ready to mix up some epoxy. So I've got 8 square feet, so I'm mixing up 24 ounces of Stone Coat Countertop epoxy. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting down a wash coat. I'm putting down a wash coat. It helps the colors flow. And in the wash coat, I have diamond shimmer. I also have diamond dust. And so wherever any of my color coat does not coat my edges completely, it's really cool because you can see the sparkle and you can see the shimmer of adding that into the wash coat. And if you noticed, I put that wash coat all the way around the edges first. That's the one that had the diamond dust and the diamond shimmer. So now I'm getting my colors mixed up. I'm using pearl white by Just Resin, bronze, which is a polycolor. So the colors I'm mixing up are, I have some pearl white, also rust, which is a polycolor metallic powder, black metallic, also polycolor, and then aluminum from Just Resin. And I'm getting those colors mixed up. By the way, those red Solo cups that have those ridges on the inside, man, if you're going to buy red Solo cups, do not buy those Solo cups with the ridges on the inside. They're awful. So I need to get my camera turned, and I will here in just a minute. But I'm getting my colors poured out, and although I'm pouring my colors in a linear fashion, kind of a striated fashion, um, I'm pouring them out randomly. In other words, I'm not making those tiger stripes or those candy cane stripes, so to speak. There, I got the camera squared away. So I've got some colors that are heavy in some areas, not heavy in some others. And I'm going to take my torch, just heat that up just a little bit, and then I'm going to use my hand, and I'm just lightly going to meld those colors. I don't want to mix those colors. I don't want to blend them, and I don't want to over meld them because I don't want them to kind of get muddy on me per se. But really, there's not a whole lot to that technique. It's just getting those colors melded out. And here I'm adding the white pearl just in some areas because I like that contrast of that white pearl. Not a lot of it's going to show, but just enough of it is to give what I think is a really cool contrast. Then kind of stand back, take a look at the project, see where you might need a little more of this, a little more of that. And that's what I'm doing here, where I wanted to add a little bit more black metallic. And just stand back and figure out how you like it and if you've got everything where you want it. Now what I've done is I've taken some Seaside, which is a Rust-Oleum spray paint, kind of a turquoise or kind of a turquoise color, but it's called Seaside, and that's what I'm putting in there for accent colors. You can see it on my stir stick right there. And I apologize for the glare from my overhead lights, but I just can't get away from it. So I'm adding those Seaside accents just in some areas. Whenever I have a rock edge and I'm putting accents down, I really like to have those accent colors kind of flow over that rock edge. To me, I just think it gives a really, really cool effect. So once I got those colors down, then I took my heat gun and just kind of melded those in. It's been 24 hours, and now what I'm doing is applying the ultimate top coat in the natural finish. I don't always recommend this, but since I only had 3 ounces per square foot, I didn't use a paint tray. I just poured the ultimate top coat on the surface, and then I went over it with my wet roller, back rolled one time with my wet roller, then I went over it with my dry roller, and now what I'm doing is getting my edges finished. This next section is going to be 22 minutes. This right here is a 22-minute time lapse to show how that UTC dries to not seeing any lap lines, any roller marks, and really, really turned out nice. So here's an overview where you're going to see the top surface, and there's some areas in here that I'm going to point out. Remember those ridges that I put in with the Bondo? You're going to be able to see kind of some shadowing, if you will, right there a little bit. Those were raised areas, but after the color coat and the clear coat, it's absolutely perfectly smooth on top. Oh man, that rock edge just turned out amazing. Sorry, jumping around here a little bit, but the rock edge is just crazy, crazy cool. I wish you could see it in person, but man, it's for 1-inch foam, it's crazy. You would look at this piece and you would think it weighs a ton, and it probably weighs a matter of maybe 1.5 pounds because of being pink foam. See on that top surface where it almost looks like it has a 3D effect. And that's where those ridges were. And what happened was the metallics kind of fell down or slid off of where those peaks were, but it left a really cool effect. So a lot of what you're seeing on that top surface when you kind of see a change in the colors, that's where that comes from, is where I had the Bondo on top. Man, look at that rock edge. It just really, really turned out cool. It looks like such an authentic piece of stone the way it turned out. It's just amazing. People have seen it and they immediately think it weighs a ton, and obviously it doesn't. Look at that. That, wow. Sorry, it just really turned out cool. So remember how I said I like to have my accent colors kind of float over that rock edge? That's the effect that it gives, and really looks cool. So there's a little bit of a bigger shot. Those vertical lines you see in there came from the heat gun. And I do that intentionally because it too kind of gives it a really, really cool, almost a folded or a 3D type effect. How am I going to hang it? So I routed out two square areas and I epoxied in two square wooden blocks, put some piano wire across there. Now I've got it ready to go up. That's the finished product. Actually turned out really, really cool. And there it is on the wall. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And once again, this is Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs.